Ji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. In Bhagavad Gita 3.35, it is said that it is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though they may be faulty, than another's duties. My question is, I was born in a family of Brahmanas, whose prescribed duty is Purohityam. But currently I'm working as software engineer, and I don't know whether I'm doing the right duty. How is duty related to that by birth?
Krishna says, Chatur Varnyam Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasaha. He doesn't say Janma Vibhagasaha. He doesn't say that your Varna, your occupational duty, is determined by your birth. So this whole idea of I'm born in this kind of family or that kind of family is completely bogus. That is not Varnashram Dharma. That is the caste system which was introduced by foreigners in India. The actual Varnashram system is by Guna Karma Vibhagasaha. The Varnas are divided by the quality and the work of a person. So if your intelligence is suitable for Brahminical work, even so, you still have to get trained up. So you may have the guna, but because you haven't been trained up in Brahminical practices or reach the Brahminical standard of purity, then you cannot do the work of a Brahmana. You may have the guna, but you don't have the karma. See? Without Brahmanas, without Brahminical culture, you can't have a Vedic society. You can't have Varnashram Dharma. Varnashram Dharma is totally dependent and based upon the function of the Brahmanas to deliver the Vedic knowledge to the society and to advise in its application. So the problem with this is that in Kali Yuga, we don't have any Brahmanas. We don't have any qualified Brahmanas. The so-called Brahmanas that are born in so-called Brahmana families are actually, the Vedic term for them is Brahma Bandhu. Brahma Bandhu means a friend of a Brahmana. So maybe one person in the family 2 or 3 generations ago was a qualified Brahmana, but now they've become degraded. There are Brahmanas in India working in government service, like Shudras, clerks and like that, kyashtas. So what is the question of them claiming to be Brahmana and wearing sacred thread and all of that? They can't perform the work of a Brahmana. Just like in Srimad Bhagavatam, or not in Srimad Bhagavatam, another scripture, there was a description that one student came to a guru and he said, "Can you teach me Srimad Bhagavatam?" And the guru said, "Oh yeah, sure." And the student said, "Okay, let's go." And he said, no, wait a minute. I have to take in the harvest from the field, and I have to go here and take care of the cows, and I have so much work to do at the home that you're going to have to wait 2 or 3 months, and then maybe I can make the time. And the student said, no, I'm not going to hear from you. You're not a Brahmana. You're not a Brahmana, you're a Vaishya. Guna karma. What is the quality and what is the work that a person is doing? That's how you know what Varna they're in. It's not by birth. This idea of Varna by birth is completely bogus. And if that's the reason that India is such a mess right now, is that people are following this outside idea, this materialistic idea. Actually, it's a fallen idea, because without the training, without apprenticing with a bona fide Brahmana, a bona fide spiritual master, no one can be Brahmana. Same goes for Kshatriya, Vaishya, even Shudra. There's a saying in the Vedas, Kalau Shudra Sambhava. In the age of Kali, everyone is born Shudra. It doesn't take much training to become Shudra. Just work. And that's what everybody's doing in Kali Yuga, simply working for somebody else. If you're working for somebody else, you cannot be more than a Shudra. Beginning from Vaishya, they all have their independent source of livelihood. No Vaishya will ever take a job. No, what to speak of Kshatriya or Brahmana. Never work for somebody else. That's considered very degraded. Only Shudra will work for somebody else. Doesn't have enough intelligence to be independent. Independence means that you manage your own affairs. Nobody is but your boss. Nobody's telling you what to do. So these higher classes of Vedic society, they were like that. They were independent. They had their own land, they had their own cows, their own source of food, their own source of money if they needed money. But usually in Vedic society, only the Kshatriyas needed money for balancing state debts and stuff like that. The real thing is land and cows, food, housing, clothing, the real necessities of life. If you can produce those things, you're independent. That's the definition of Vaishya. Vaishya has to be able to produce and provide the necessities of life to all the other members of the society. Then Kshatriya. Kshatriya means he knows how to organize people into community. Kshatriya skills have to do with protecting the community. See? So the Kshatriya, his duty is to organize a community, and for that he gets some share of the production of the community, usually 20 to 25%, no more. So if someone can demonstrate these qualities of community organizing, then they have the right to call themselves Kshatriya, and to work as a Kshatriya, and to get the honor and respect due to a Kshatriya. Same with Brahmana. The Brahmana, their duty is to educate everyone in the Vedic sciences, the Vedic arts, and especially the science of self-realization. So if someone is doing that work, then they can claim to be Brahmana, no one else. Somebody who's wearing a thread and working a job, how can they call themselves Brahmana? They're Shudra. Brahmana must always be independent. And the reason for that is, Brahmana has to give advice. Sometimes a Brahmana has to speak very bluntly. Oh, you're in Maya, you rascal, you nonsense. He has to correct the student. So if the Brahmana is dependent financially on the students, how can he correct? He's not independent. He's become an employee. And with that, he loses all his qualification as Brahmana. Brahmana has to be able to speak very plainly, very bluntly, on the basis of the scriptures. Not independently. He's not giving his own opinion. That's not Brahmana. He's not speculating either. Not coming up with anything new. Brahmana is simply repeating what is there in the Vedas, that he has understood and realized for himself. That's the real duty of a Brahmana. So no one can become Brahmana unless they apprentice themselves to a Brahmana for a significant length of time. Then they can claim and wear the thread and perform the samskaras and so many things. But if they don't do that, if they don't have the ability to work, to perform the function of a Brahmana, how can they claim to be Brahmana? Guna karma vibhagasha. Means, Krishna says, I divided these varnas by quality and by work. So unless someone has the quality and can do the work, they cannot claim to belong to a particular varna. They're Shudra only, or below Shudra. If they're performing sinful activities, they're below Shudra. Not even qualified for Vedic society. So anyway, this is a long explanation and a big subject in itself. And we'll get to this when we're studying the subject later on in Bhagavad Gita. Right now we're still on the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, about karma yoga. So we're trying to engage everyone in karma yoga, and that's coming along nicely. Next is transcendental knowledge. And then after that, we'll start talking about all these other things. Are there any other questions? No? Okay. Pass the mic. Give Mike the mic.
It's like, cool. Like a pure devotee like Mother Yashoda, like she doesn't love Krishna. Well, she loves Krishna because he's the supreme, but she's not thinking, oh, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. She's like in an eternal relationship, like, so she's loving Krishna as her son, as a parent. And so, like when I think of like Krishna's pastimes, like let's say as the